There's an author by the name of Richard Cadre. He does a series that I guarantee Mark would love because it's basically the person that Mark, I think, would like to be.
Is it Cadre or Cordray?
I think it's Cadre. He writes a series called Sandman Slim.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's if you've seen the movie Lord of Illusions, that kind of reminded me a lot of it. It's about a modern day magician who gets sent to hell and comes back to screw over all the people who send him to hell.
Is that a Scott Bakula movie you just referenced?
It's Scott Bakula.
Wow. Movie. Wow.
I like that Scott Bakula movie, actually. And as far as Clive Barker works, which I do not recommend at all, that is one that I would not recommend because it's terrible. I like the push for urban fantasy because medieval fantasy is just kind of tired and boring to me. And you've got a lot of authors right now doing these more modern urban fantasies.
Dresden
is another one. That's
somebody recommended that. Yeah. One of our listeners recommended that.
I recommend Dresden as well. I've read all of them.
I've got a coworker who's constantly trying to get me to read them.
Now, I've never actually read any of the Dresden books, but correct me if I'm wrong, is it not essentially mage?
Essentially, yes. It's mage with a lot of changeling and fairy mythos brought into it.
I think it's unfair to say it's mage, okay? Because what you're saying
I'm
is
trying to tie the things into
right, but
and whatnot.
Well, yeah, but we tend to pigeonhole things because we're saying, well, anytime you transplant these fantasy concepts into a modern era, you say, oh, it's this thing. Well, no, all they did was take fantasy concepts and put them in a modern age.
Yeah, it's a Hollywood trick. It's Heartbreak Ridge meets Fast Five.
Right, or I mean, nobody.
I don't know how you do that. I just pick two movies on the top of my head.
Sure, why not? Yeah, but I mean, so you take like an author like Neil Gaiman, who's really good at this.
Oh yeah, love.
But because it's Neil Gaiman, nobody tries to.
Neil Gaiman wrote Harry Potter before there was any Harry Potter.
More importantly, I think the Neverwhere setting, which is one of my favorite books of all time, would make an awesome source book for Victoriana. This, if for those of you who have not read it or watched the BBC show, which is not bad, it's okay. It's about an alternate underground London society that exists parallel to above ground.
Yeah. The only Neil Gaiman I've ever read was American Gods,
which is another book I can read every couple of weeks.
That currently, if I'm not mistaken, is slated for an HBO.
I think they bought the rights. Did they actually?
I think they're moving forward with it.
I hope so.
You haven't read Anansi Boys?
No.
I didn't read that one either.
To American Gods, basically. It's pretty
good.
It
was pretty good.
To go with fantasy in modern day, there's a book called Age of Odin that is set in Britain, and it's after basically a 3-year horrible winter. Most of the world's kind of starting to starve. I don't mean to spoiler it here, but basically it goes into the coming of Ragnarok in modern times. You start, what will modern weaponry do to a frost giant type thing.
Okay.
Modern weapons like in guns?
As in like a Barrett 50 sniper rifle.
Nice.
Yes.
As far as inspiration goes, we had a conversation last year about, again, I'm going to bring up junior high.
But
I can't believe it took this long.
There was a book after we had started playing. There was a book that I used to go to the library and take off the shelf, sit down and read it, and then put it back. You'd come back the next year. Book's gone. I couldn't remember what the title was. I couldn't remember any of that stuff. So I went to chronicles.net, I think is the website, and I put down what I could remember about the book. I got an answer like the very next day, and it turned out it was Chronicle of Ursi by Ursula K. Le Guin. And I got a copy of it on my phone now, and I've been catching up on it. And I just remember reading that when I was a kid, and getting inspired by that book when I was playing the game with you guys. So,
and this Chronicles, it's chronicles.net.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
And it's a website you can put in what story did this happen, and somebody answers you.
Basically, they've got separate pages for different authors. Like George R. R. Martin has his own page. They'll have, I don't remember which particular board I went to ask the question, but basically it's a board set up so you can go and ask questions about books, and they'll try and answer your question for you.
It's called crowdsourcing, is what you're doing there.
Sure, yeah. I got an answer almost instantly just based off of the vague recollection I had of what most of it was based, again, on a map. Going back to the maps, based on that one fact, someone was able to identify what book I was looking for.
That was somebody who was really into it.
Sure. And I've been reading it, and it's a good book.
It's as good as you remember.
Sure, yeah.
They had a sci-fi series about it.
Earthsea.
Yes, they did. And it was terrible. And I remember watching it, and it was terrible. It was horrible. Danny Glover was in that.
Ooh.
I read Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer last summer, and I am ready to play a vampire game where I get to kill vampires.
Yeah, that's Hunter game.
Let's do it.
You know they're making that into a movie. I've seen some of the still shots. It looks bad.
It does. It looks awesome.
Yes.
It's going to be great.
They get Daniel Day-Lewis to play Abe Lincoln again.
No, Daniel Day-Lewis is playing Abe Lincoln in Spielberg's movie.
Yes,
I think it's awesome that they're both going to come out the same year.
This is what Hollywood does. Like, there's 2 or 3 Snow White projects coming out this year.
Yeah.
It's like, they've got one. They've got a project. We need to get one too.
Right.
That's how you get Armageddon and Deep Impact in the same summer.
Which one was better, Mark?
I thought they both sucked.
I have never seen Armageddon and have no desire to see it.
Yeah,
Oh man, you mean you didn't like going onto a rock to drill down to blow it up?
Any movie where Bruce Willis goes after Ben Affleck with a shotgun and misses does not get my 2 thumbs up.
And we're supposed to care about, what's her name? Horseface.
Liv Tyler.
Tyler.
You guys are nuts. I'm serious. You guys are crazy. Shit, that is a beautiful woman.
I did, man. never
If
mind.
she walked in here right now,
That is not
That
a
is
good
Jason's
metric.
favorite argument.
but anyway.
All right.
I don't really know what we've done so far, but other than list a bunch of stuff that
I really can't think of any book that I've ever read that directly inspired me to make a character.
There's another author I've never read, Terry Pratchett.
you should. That's fantasy worth reading. Terry Pratchett it's fantasy.
It's Douglas Adams, but fantasy with a lot more drugs.
Let's be completely honest. Game of Thrones is freaking depressing.
Right.
Yes.
There's nothing positive ever happens.
That's true.
I'm
You
reading
know.
that book right now.
Which
and
one?
It is
The first one?
First book. And it is so slow.
It is.
'Cause, I mean,
It's slow.
it sucks because I've already seen the movie or the series.
Yeah.
And
There's
reading
not
it.
going to be surprises for you.
No, and I'm just like, it's just like trying to get through the pages. I'm
Like,
just
That's too bad. Because to me, the best
I mean, there's
thing
still
about
material in there that I haven't seen in the series, but it's just getting to that.
You don't
new
feel like
material.
you missed out on a
No.
whole lot.
The thing about the George R. R. Martin stuff is, like, even though the stories are very good and the writing is very good, he does get into some really
Tedious detail.
tedious detail. Yes.
It's that my love of brevity.
But what he does, for me, it's all in the way that he arranges the book. The way he cuts the chapters up is like, this chapter's from this guy's perspective, this chapter's from this guy's perspective.
Right.
And it's like 9 chapters before you get back to that first guy.
Yeah.
So you're constantly going, well, when are they going to talk about John again, you bastards? So that's how you end up staying up for 36
Because
hours.
you go, ooh, I forgot about that.
Well, I will say, and I was telling Mike, because I went back whenever I went to reread the first book before the series. You can take those books and only read the characters that you
Right.
like.
care
Well,
about.
that's what
And
I'm
you're
finding
not-
myself doing.
You're not going to miss. You're really not going to miss.
I'm
anything.
going through to the character that I like the most and just reading about
All right,
him.
who's your favorite character?
Probably the bastard.
Jon
Jon
Snow.
Snow.
Jon Snow.
I like Jon Snow a lot.
Same here.
I think he's
Yeah.
kind of a shithead myself.
Who do you like? Who's your
like
favorite
But
character?
I've read the most recent book, so
Spoiler.
sorry. But I didn't give anything away.
Well, that, okay.
I like the
There's
imp
like
a lot.
5 books on
Oh,
that
yeah.
each giveaway.
I
Yeah.
like the imp
How
a
can
lot.
you not?
Yeah.
Hey, well-deserved award to
Yeah.
Peter
Oh,
Dinklage,
yes.
by the way.
Did you hear? I think you called that in episode 1.
I did.
Well, it's not the first time he's won an award for that part, though, right? Didn't he win an award?
Emmy.
Yeah, he won an Emmy.
Golden Globe.
I'm saying
this week.
it's
Was it,
well.
was it a
well-deserved.
mini?
Yes.
Oh, dude.
Well, wow. That's horrible. By the way, that was horrible. Well, it's
I apologize to any people of short stature that may be listening to this show.
I have actually thought of a book that inspired me to make a character, but I'm wondering if the book was mostly responsible for it or if it was the cartoon adaptation. That would be The Hobbit.
Yes.
And
I've read that one.
I did make a halfling thief character that's one of my all-time favorite characters. And he was he was mostly a ripoff of Bilbo, but he was maybe a little more,
No,
you can't-
Brando.
Brando.
You can't
was-
get more archetypal than that.
Yeah. I mean, he was probably considerably more ignorant than Bilbo and a little more sneaky maybe, but
Yeah, I've said on more than one occasion that's my favorite book. That's the book I read every year. I will read that every year just traditionally.
that
have a
is
question.
something that I cannot do. I cannot read books over and over again.
It's a short book.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have probably read The Hobbit more than any other book that I've ever read over and over again. But I'm kind of the same way with movies. I have a hard time watching movies, over and over again, unless it's been many years since I've seen them.
Yeah.
See, I have a hard time reading Tolkien.
In
I was
general?
I was like, maybe it's like having had already known the stories ahead of time, but it was like the guy's writing style, I just can't quite.
Well, that's the book for you then, because all the other books are the thick books. That's the easy one. That's the children's level.
What are you saying, Mike?
Seriously.
Is that a blow to his intelligence?
No, I'm serious.
That's what he intended.
You're talking to the guy that read Hamlet for a book report in 5th grade, okay?
It doesn't make you cool, though. Or
It did not make me cool. It just made me really well read.
I was going to say, didn't you say you got beat up a lot in grade school?
Yes, I did, Greg.
Try reading the children.
You're about to get beat up a lot right now.
Try reading the Children of Huron.
Yeah,
you lent me that.
That's
Mike.
like George Martin.
Yeah, but I
had a question.
I could not read that at all. I mean, it was just I could not do it. It was a slog. Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Was Bilbo a thief before Gandalf just showed up and said, "Hey, dude, you're coming with us"? Because it looks like he was just like, "Hey, you're a farm guy. You could be sneaky."
No, I think Gandalf was pegging him as a thief based on his family's background.
Not a thief. A burglar.
Burglar, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Just trying to be a
He wasn't a mugger.
Troll. You're trolling Mike. Good job. Way to be awesome.
So his father Dildo was.
Hey, we're getting into Jason's genre.
He specialized in getting into tight spots.
Wow.
Okay, so we've accomplished nothing. How about we go around and just do one last recommendation?
For your inspiration for D&D fantasy, if you
just a good book, good book.
Just throw it out.
The Fafford and the Grey Mouser series,
awesome,
is kind of leans more in the Conan in than Lord of the Rings. It's kind of gritty. They are not heroes. They are like mercenaries for hire or whatever. They're only in it for themselves. I would definitely have inspiration for making a character from that series.
I'll plug a local guy, and it's some of the last fantasy that I read before I just kind of decided to stop. Is The Black Company,
Glenn Cook,
Glenn Cook,
yeah.
a St. Louis-based writer.
Yeah,
it's a bit more militant than say It's more like the military aspect of what goes on in, say, Game of Thrones, whereas Game of Thrones is a bit more political.
Right.
The Black Company and the Chronicles of the South and all of the books that he writes in that world are a little bit more on the military side, the action side.
Yeah,
but they're really good.
The thing that I really like Glenn Cook, one of the things that I had to get over was he doesn't go into blow by blow detail of a battle. He'll do
that's what
build
I was
up
going to say.
and then he'll do the aftermath.
Right. I was like, I'm reading the damn book, and I couldn't get through it. I didn't finish it. I enjoyed it up until the point where I decided that I didn't finish it. It's just like, you can't.
You're really selling it.
Wow.
Hey, you recommended it. I'm saying, it's because of that I was like, because I love a good action sequence. When I'm reading an action sequence that's well-written, action sequence, I get all tingly and start to giggle.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's weird, and it's like it's like literary blue balls. I'd get it. I was like,
wow.
And it was like, after the battle, Dick Nose decided that.
But that sets it apart because how many times have we read a battle? All right. I mean,
it's like all the porn with the porn cut out.
It's like reading Graham McNeil. A bunch of people like in the 40K universe really like Graham McNeil, and I've read 4 of his books, and they're all the same.
Yes,
they're all the same. Every time he writes a battle, it's always like tip of the spear, sever the head. Every freaking battle is the same. And even when you read sci-fi and fantasy, like battles are just kind of the same. There's going to be a victor or there's going to be total annihilation. That's what I thought was interesting.
Well, I mean, think about it.
He cut out the cruft.
George Martin does the same thing. I mean, there's really not. He goes into detail of like maybe an individual duel or when the mountain cuts
something that's important.
Cuts up the horse or whatever.
That bastard.
Favorite part.
It's because you're a horrible human being.
Yes.
Demented.
My turn, I guess?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I mentioned Brent Weeks, but I'm going to kind of go in a different direction. There's a 40K book called Dead Men Walking.
Yes.
It's a guard book, isn't it?
It is. It's a guard book about the Death Corps of Krieg showing up to a world, and there's a Necron invasion.
Nice.
And it is excellent. The only thing that I can think of to recommend that we haven't mentioned is Karen Travis books. She wrote some Gears of War novels, and she wrote the Republic Commando novel.
Oh, yeah.
And they're very good, in my opinion. So I would recommend either of those, barring anything else that I've not talked about this evening.
It's either going to be Star Wars for me, because everything in my life comes back to Star Wars, but...
it's not working out very well for you. I can break that to you.
We're going to go with Wheel of Time. Robert Jordan. He didn't get a lot of lip service this evening. But,
well, the thing about Wheel of Time, and that was one. If you didn't bring it up, I was going to, because and this also goes back to listening to audiobooks. If you're going to listen to an audiobook, I recommend listening to the Wheel of Time series, because the two voice actors are fantastic.
Ooh, I got to interject. The guy who does the Game of Thrones audiobooks, save for the third book, is amazing. Listening to those, it's like listening to someone act the book out. Is great.
And this is the same way. Yeah. Kate Redding and Michael Kramer, the two voice actors for that.
They switch back from the perspective. If you're reading a chapter with a female perspective, Kate Redding reads it, and then Michael Kramer does all the masculine chapters.
And just the difference in character. You can listen to that.
It keeps it from being monotonous.
Yeah, and